Hey, everybody, welcome. We are the Super Monkey Fighters, and this is our movie podcast, What Would You Change? I'm here with Monkey Feathers and Papa Nugget.
Hey, hey.
And
hello.
If I didn't already say it, because I've already forgotten, I'm Loki. This week we're reviewing Soul, the 2020 Disney Pixar animated film that came out straight to Disney Plus. I noticed at the beginning it was a Disney Plus original was on the title, so... It is the story of a jazz pianist who, after landing the gig of a lifetime, suddenly finds himself trapped in a strange land between Earth and the afterlife. It was directed by Pete Docter and Kemp Powers. It was also written by Pete Docter, Mike Jones, and Kemp Powers. Stars Jamie Foxx as Joe, the jazz pianist. Tina Fey is 22, an unborn soul who is kind of stuck because she can't find her spark. Graham Norton, surprisingly, I didn't even recognize Graham Norton as the voice of Moonwind. Rachel House was the voice of Terry. Alicia Bragg was Counselor Jerry. Richard Ayoade, which you will know from
the IT crowd.
The It Crowd, however you pronounce it. There's another Counselor Jerry, Phylicia Rashad, Donnell Rawlings, who you will know as Ashley Larry from The Chappelle Show. Questlove was the voice of Curly, Angela Bassett. Also, West Studio was another Counselor Jerry. There's a lot of Counselor Jerrys. They're kind of a construct and not... Yeah, anyway, it makes sense when you watch the movie. Had you guys seen this one before?
I hadn't, actually. This was
fresh.
The very first time I'd seen it.
So... I thought I had seen all of it several times, piece by piece, but I'd really only seen maybe the first 45 minutes. Interestingly enough as well, this was one of my kids' favorite movies, and they love watching it. And 2 days before I watched it, they were watching it nonstop. And then when I wanted to sit down and watch it with them, they hated it. And we had to watch Ralph Breaks the Internet because that was their favorite movie. So I watched it on my own, which I think was probably better anyway.
Yeah, and that's funny because, back to that point, as I was watching this, I was like, who is this really geared for? Is it geared towards kids? It's an animated film. And so I was curious, would this appeal to them, and how much would it? I don't know. Kids are kids, right? So it's hard to understand what appeals to them sometimes.
Yeah. I don't know. Disney, if you allow this podcast to go out, thank you. And two, let me know specifically how many times my kids have watched this, because I have no idea. I know it's at least a dozen, probably more. But kind of to that same point, I enjoyed this one. It was a feel-good movie to me. I wanted to keep going and know what happened, right? Even though I knew it was probably going to end on a positive note, and everything was going to kind of work out in the end. So, but I did kind of like all of it, I guess. I don't really have a ton of bad to say about it. So,
I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
it was one movie that it had my attention the entire time through, and it was interesting. I don't have much bad to say about the story and the way it was portrayed.
Characters are good, and I think they portray some, not simplistic, but some pretty basic human emotions and human archetypes. But I think they do it well enough, and they're engaging enough and enjoying enough that you're not annoyed by the fact that they're going through the same kind of struggles that most everybody goes through.
Yeah. What kind of the main topics that they're hitting on are kind of cliche, right? But it's because it applies to, I think, a lot of people. But that's kind of what makes it appeal to people at the same time. So, there were a few times I kind of felt this is kind of a little...
Cliche?
Yeah, kind of. It stood out to me that it felt cliche, but I was like, that's okay.
I think they do it well enough that it's okay that it's the same kind of struggles. It's the same hero's journey that we've always seen in pretty much everything.
Yep.
But it stands out because it's so well done.
Yeah.
Feathers, you've been awfully quiet.
Because I'm waiting for you guys to start listing actual likes about the film.
The music, hands down, I think that's, the last couple of these podcasts we've done, you guys have both mentioned music, and I've been it was there, but it didn't stand out to me. This time it did, which we failed to mention at the beginning. all of the jazz composition was done by John Batiste, who is he's on the Colbert Show. He's his musical host, and then all of the other soundtrack composition was all done by Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails. So it's interesting to see Disney allowing the guy who did the song Closer to be part of a movie. But also, like, I was surprised looking through the cast, and I know that sometimes, Disney used Robin Williams, right? Robin Williams is a very blue comedian. Like he kind of runs the gamut as far as that goes. He's very family friendly and then very not. But looking through that's kind of, I think, most of the people involved in this, like, and so it's good, and I think it lent very well, especially to the Great Before. Like, it's got this light, ethereal kind of, I don't want to say pop because you'll think of pop music, but there's a lot of like pop sounds, like a balloon popping and tinking and those kinds of things. It fits and it builds the world.
It's very childlike, and it's very positive because I agree. The music for this, it stood out, but very positively, because as I'm watching it, I'm thinking it fits very well for each of these settings as this character's going through each of the great beyond right before he's running away from it, but it's very, I would say, like heavenly, like angel choir type music for the great beyond, and then you have the great before where it's very childlike because that's kind of what it is. It's these kids before they're about to go into the earth like soul bodies that they're supposed to go for or go into. So I actually really did like the music for this one as well, because I did feel that it fit, and it was very interesting for this movie, given that this movie is really much based around music. And I think that if the music wasn't as good as it is, at least in my opinion, I don't think the movie would have held up.
I think the different styles, and so John Batiste with the jazz compositions and the jazz sections in the movie that stand out entirely on their own from a lot of the other stuff, because there is a dramatic difference in those, and I think that both of them being done as well as they were and as different as they were really lent to what those moments needed to be.
I was going to say, I just like that they used Bob Dylan for Moonwind every time he...
yes, that was... Yeah. That is actually something that stood out to me is Bob Dylan was always playing on his psychedelic pirate ship. Which was good.
Yeah. And I love the description they use for him, a spiritual sign twirler. That's the best. That's
spot on. That's perfect for what he is. And it's another perfect example of that, where, the scenes that he's in kind of the astral sea it's a dark, bleak landscape, and he's this bright, colorful, beacon of hope kind of a thing. And then he's a hippie beatnik, he's there through meditation, with his crew all meditating around the world, and it's, Bob Dylan, hippie music playing. So, but the thing that stood out to me was right after he finally has his moment playing with the jazz, with the quartet, and his big break, and it's jazz, and it's everything about the music is just, they're running through the gamut of everything you'd expect a jazz club to have. And then he goes home and he's kind of melancholy, and he doesn't, like, he got what he wanted, but he doesn't quite feel like he had accomplished it. And he's, something's still missing. And then you have very obvious Trent Reznor piano moment when he finally gets in the moment so that he can go back to the astral sea and save the day. Like, that whole change in music really showcases that dynamic between those two styles. And then, didn't even think of Bob Dylan there, but I did at the moment. Like, when I was watching it, Bob Dylan really did stand out as fitting for that. I think hands down, I think we'd all probably agree, as Monkey Feather said, I think the music is kind of the standout of this.
I don't know. Like, it didn't stand out to me.
Yeah.
And that's probably a good thing. Like, it didn't detract. Everything fit in, but like my attention wasn't drawn to the music. It was just part of the film.
For me, especially in theaters, I tend to kind of sit through credits, but I did this time. I find it's a nice little decompression moment to just sit and watch the credits roll and kind of process everything I just watched. This one I did simply just because I wanted to hear the music. I mean, and outside of that, I think the animation fit really well. I do like it stood out to me specifically with the doctor when they come back in and he's in the cat and 22's in his body and they're hiding in a room right before they get in the elevator. The doctor's nose is like the biggest thing on frame as she walks by. And that's when it stood out to me. It's just how over exaggerated a lot of features were on people. And then it started to stand out a lot more with the constructs, Jerry and Terry, where as they kind of morphed around, like I just started paying attention to that.
They were like Picasso paintings.
Yeah. That was really interesting and unexpected, like as they move around and do things and you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, that would be how something like that would work, I guess, sort of. So I think that was the especially the lighting in animated movies. I think that's been the biggest improvement over time is how lighting and shadows and those kinds of things play on animated films. I think that's what lends the most realistic aspect to all, or believable. Like, nothing about this is realistic. It's not, South Park style cartoon or, like they're trying to make these people look like people, but they're still animated people. So what stood out to me for the animation in this one was the environment. There was so much detail and objects and everything packed into like all of the Earth environments. Like, cause you think about like Toy Story or something, even though there's a lot of stuff, like the environment's pretty dull. But then the level of detail in the environments here is it's like everything. Like some of the rooms it felt like there was a camera sitting there filming New York City, especially his apartment.
Yep. That's exactly what I'm thinking of.
And the scene where he, with the trimmers and he cuts his hair, when he's standing on the stack of records, and he's just got stuff sitting around that you would just have, like the stuff that you collect and just have.
Yeah.
Whereas Toy Story, they wouldn't have been able to put in that much detail. So there's a desk, but it's pretty barren. Like there's a couple of things on there where this was like, it's a desk, but it's full of stuff.
It's got tons
but
of
it also
junk.
goes to show just how much technology has changed. The year difference between when Toy Story was released, because it was released in 95, to now with Soul being released in 2020. So that's a good 15, 20 years, 25 years.
Yeah, but even newer animated videos and movies, generally you don't see this much level of detail.
Well, but the fact that you can do it now, you can actually have the technology at your fingertips to add in the details into environment scenes to make them more realistic, as opposed to years ago when you're just like, this is kind of where we're at and this is kind of what we can do and things like that.
Well, and I say with that level of detail and attention to kind of realistic environments, right after that big nose scene with the doctor, when they walk outside, that is, to me, is a fairly realistic representation of sensory overload. 22's, that's the first time she's experiencing anything. And it's bright and it's loud and everything's bumping her and it's just kind of this frantic little scene. Like that stands out to me every time I've seen that, because I've seen that one a dozen times or more. Like that stands out as, people really understood what somebody would be going like when they have that. Like there's just too much noise, there's too much light, there's too much everything going around. And then, that stands out as, to me, that's kind of the standout scene, especially with the attention to detail, because there's hundreds of people on that street and there's fire trucks going by and there's jackhammers and like all of these things. When they get focused on, you see all the detail, but when you don't focus on them, they're still there. And then later on, you still notice in the city, like all of those things are still in the background. Like all that stuff is still going on. Everything, there's stuff going on in the world. So I really did like that.
Yeah. And the other thing that stood out to me was just like the texture and lighting on like walls and things. Mm-hmm. So it almost, to me, it was like, it was nice because it was like an animated film where you had kind of your animated characters where kind of they're all kind of, the features are distorted to be cartoony, but at the same time, the environment is like they're trying to make it realistic. And so that's the thing that kind of stood out to me is like they have these rich, detailed environments, at least on Earth, where like they're making things look. And it's not like they were going for like complete realism. I don't think they were trying to make it look, but like it was pretty good. And so there was, I don't know, there's just that distinction between the characters and the environment. The environment really stood out to me in this one. And I thought they just did a great job with it.
Well, and it's not just when it's an important scene, right? Because there's times when you're focused on the lighting, like when the little helicopter's falling off the tree, and that scene is built to be light rays coming through, and everything looks, you're focused on that because that's what the character's focused on. Where in the past, the detail was there when they were focused on it, and not other times, and so it just helps maintain that level of reality and believability. It's almost something that it's like most good things in movies. If you don't notice it, but you feel good about it, that's the important thing. I mean, most good editing, most good sound design, most good lighting, most good, all of those kinds of things. If you notice it without looking for it, that's bad. Like, the point of a lot of these is to make it just kind of blend in and flow and feel good. And that's what a lot of these details do. So.
It's to create a world that you can believe and not detract from watching and experiencing something.
And this one showcases it too when they're focused on background characters in a lot of the same scenes. Like the focus shifts to them, but they've been there the whole time, and you just realize that they're there when the focus shifts to them. But if they weren't there in the background, it'd be weird to all of a sudden focus on a person, and then just it's the angles in a way that you don't see them in the background. But they always, they don't do that with this, so it stands out. But it's also kind of balanced with The Great Before, where everything's just kind of a amorphous gradient color. Like there's not a ton of detail there. I mean, even the characters are just lines, like, it's kind of got that balance, but it fits all those just different aspects of it. So everything in the Great Hereafter, Great Before, whatever it is, fits that style, the sound design, the look, the feel. Everything on Earth has that look and feel, and so it's really well done.
And I like the character Terry. It's hilarious.
Terry, the accountant, focused on the counts off by one. And everybody else is just kind of like, okay, Terry, that's
no
good. You're great. No one really cares. Yeah.
The funny part with Terry was when they decided to let, I guess his character's name's Joe. When they decided to let him go back to Earth, and they're like, no, don't worry, we've already worked it out with Terry. And then the next scene is, hey, Terry.
Look over there.
And he's like, oh, what? Did you say something? I don't know. Wasn't like, what? And
were you even talking? Yeah. Yep. That was, I think all of those things just fit really well and did good.
I was going to say, like, there's one more thing that I actually really did like, because you mentioned you liked the character Terry. I actually really liked the character Soul 22. I liked the personality of the character where she's like, well, Earth sucks and I don't really like Earth. But then as she's actually in a body to experience Earth itself, you get to see what it's like for this character. And as they're experiencing all these different aspects of Earth, because Joe's like, what, you don't like pizza? And she's like, no, I can't even taste it. You can't even taste it. You can't even smell it. And then when she actually gets to experience it, she's like, this is amazing. Yeah. So throughout the movie, you get to experience and watch as this new character is experiencing things for the first time. And I really enjoyed that because it's kind of some things that she mentioned. I'm great at walking, and I could be like, stargazing could be my spark. Yeah. Simple things like that where we always do it, or it's just part of life. This character is like, but this is amazing, and this could be my spark, and this could be the greatest thing about my character, or the thing that gets me to Earth is just these simple things that we just take for granted.
What's great about that I just realized as you were, describing it all, if Joe is the main character and 22 is kind of the sidekick, 22 is the one who has the character arc and the story arc for most of the movie. Joe's is kind of like, the last little bit. It's nice to be able to enjoy that because we're kind of trying to follow Joe and maybe more of his perspective. Like, he's on a journey. He's trying to get with the thing that he needs to get, but his is all tangible. And there's this amazing character arc that's happening that he's part of, but doesn't even realize he's part of it. Mm-hmm. And it's, and that's part of his story is that he realizes that, the spark isn't necessarily your purpose and what you're supposed to do with your life. It's the will to live. It's the will to be there and enjoy and move forward. And so it can be just stargazing or whatever it is. That's the thing that makes life worth living. And it's not you're put on Earth to do this one thing. And so it blends really well and comes together at the end. But the whole time you're watching this other character experience all these things. And Joe's just pulling him along because it's like, oh, we got to get here. We got to do this. We got to get back in my body. We got to switch this thing around. And so he's just hyper. He's what's it with the astral plane where you're in it. You're in the moment and you're up, and everything's great. Or you're down in it and you're the monster down at the bottom. Like he is doing that when they're trying to get his body back. He's down in the mud, kind of a thing. And so, and then he comes out. Like it's really good. Like they do this really well, and it's not. I don't think it's as in your face as a lot of movies do them. It's just, it's there and, you kind of experience it as you go. So yeah, really good.
Yeah. And the characters are really rich and and like you said, like there are multiple like story arcs happening.
But it is interesting that you bring up 22 and pizza and food and those kinds of things, because that is my one dislike is the arbitrary rules that they build in the world. So in The Great Before, in the Hall of Everything, where you're supposed to experience and figure out what that spark is, you can't taste food, you can't smell food.
How would you know to be a cook?
How would you know? Yeah, how would you know these kinds of things? And so it's just it's a minor thing because it's there for the story, but it's one of those things that's there for the story, and it's a detail that pulls me out rather than pulls me in. Like, how can you know? Like, and especially when 22 has pizza for the first time, she smells it sitting in the gutter or the stoop, the side stoop of a New York, brownstone. Like, the smells can't be that great in there, but she notices the pizza and it stands out and it's big, and because they make it stand out later on, knowing it, like the first time through, I probably would have just glossed over it. But because I've seen that part of the film a dozen or more times, like, you're like, wait a minute. Yeah, of course. If somebody could taste food or, those kinds of things, like that would be a thing. And that's a passion that somebody would have. And that would be, all of the things that 22 experiences are kind of those. And it's like that. How does anything ever get their spark if they can't experience anything to get that spark? So it's one of those things that just kind of, for me,
and the thing it's like
kind of contradictory, and you need to reconcile it. And they just don't. It's just like it is both of these things at the same time.
Yeah, so. And the other thing that just seems weird, and like this is probably way too far down the rabbit hole, is it's just like people develop likes, dislikes, whatever you want to call for things through experience, and it's like you're trying to pick your spark with no experience. It's like how do you do that?
It's the hall of experience, but you don't actually experience anything, or you only experience specific things. Like you get hit in the head with a soccer ball and you're like, oh, sports, or you shoot a basket or, you know, those kinds of things. Like you start a fire, because that was one of the things where she's like, I kind of want to watch it spread. Like, there are things you can experience, but you can't experience anything that's sensory, just more maybe emotional. It's just a weird, you know, and like you said, down the rabbit hole. I think that's a sign of how good this movie is because we're going down the rabbit hole to find things we don't like.
Yeah.
Like
the things that are just kind of glossed over because it's really not needed for the story. They're just details that are left out and just kind of glossed over.
There's that. That's my kind of one. The other one is kind of how they handle the Earth portal, where it's just a hole in the ground, like, and everybody just jumps in. Like, I don't know. It just seems, but it fits the world where it's just this ethereal, like he jumps in and then all of a sudden he's just back there. It's like, okay, yeah, that kind of fits that idea of eternity and infinity and just whatever. But it, again, nitpicky. Feathers, you look like you've got something.
No, I'm just, it's just so interesting that the one thing you don't like is the one thing that I don't like, because it things that you were already talking about, you can't experience things by not experiencing them. The very big thing, which is where Joe walks up and he grabs pizza and he's like, "What, you don't like pizza?" And she's like, "No, you can't smell it, you can't taste it. It's a body thing and not a soul thing." So you can't experience anything. Music, where she's like, "I just really don't like music." But as soon as she gets into his body, she's able to experience what music is, especially the scene where they're in the subway about to get on a train and the dude's playing a guitar and her reaction to that. She's experiencing things. But in the Great Before, you're just supposed to jump in and say like, sports is my thing, or music's my thing, or just different things. But you don't get to experience it to know. And as Nugget said, you know likes and dislikes their experience. Because when you're younger, you might really like this one thing and it's the greatest thing ever. But then as you get older, you just end up hating it. Yeah. And so I think, and it's for the purpose of the movie to get her to actually understand experiences by doing it. But it just seems kind of like the flaw, because you're just throwing everyone through this narrow-minded thought process of this cookie cutter plan of you're going to go through the hall of experiences. You're just going to choose that one thing, and that's going to be your reason for living. And what if it's not?
Yeah. And it changes for people.
Well, and it changes because the barber, where he said that he wanted to go to veterinarian school, but then everything changed for him because, money and costs. And then he found out that he really liked cutting hair because he can meet new people and hear new stories.
Yeah, and so that's what I was thinking. Like, how do you determine, I want to be a therapist or a psychologist or things that deal with people? Like, you haven't dealt with people, so how would you even know if you like people? Like,
and that's well, and that's the thing that Feathers, you kind of touched on too. As they don't explain this in the film, but if you can't experience it because it's a body thing, so you can't taste or smell or those kinds of things or feel, but you can certain things with your soul. Like music is like, you don't taste music. You don't. I mean, you feel the rhythm, but it's something that speaks to your soul so much more. So if that's the thing, music would be that thing where it's just, she's just like, no, nothing does anything. But clearly that's not true because she collects a bunch of things. She does have interest. She's just like, it doesn't spark joy in me or whatever it is. Like it just falls, it's a little muddled and falls a little flat, especially the more you think about it, where a lot of other aspects of the film, the more you think about it, the better they become. So. And things I would change. I mean, I would maybe try and change that aspect a little bit as well, where like, no, you can taste things, but I don't know how to change it to make it work for the story. Like, that's kind of a crux of the story is that's what pulls 22 out of that panicked state of, I'm just not going to do anything. I'm going to just sit here and wait for your body to die, and then I'll go back to where I'm at, and then I'm good. Like, that's the thing that pulls her into the world. And so I don't know how you do that if she could have already tasted food and smelled food and experienced those kinds of things. Like, that is a crux of the story, and I don't know how you change that without breaking everything.
Yeah, and her journey is different than all of the other children, right? Uh-huh. Like, she's thrown into a body that's fully grown, where everyone else has to grow up, right? So it's kind of like she has access to
memories and
and so
access to memories and experiences that Joe already went through, and it's pointed out a couple of times in the movie that you only love this thing because I love this thing. I think that's more of a flaw in Joe's character, because throughout the movie, he's very much self-centered and my needs, my wants, my everything. And it's unfortunate because I do feel that 22 was very much experiencing things as herself and not as Joe. And it kind of goes to that towards the end of the movie.
Well, and that's kind of like what Nugget was saying too, where all of the other kids in that space have a different experience. Like, they're all kids up there, and 22 is Tina Fey. She's 40-something-year-old, and so it's difficult for her to continually experience the great before, because she's experienced it all, she's done it all, and it doesn't, so everything's new, but she gets to experience it new without, like, she still remembers everything about her. So it's, whereas all the new lives, they forget childbirth and all of the great before and all that kind of stuff. So they start fresh, which she does eventually as well.
It's hard for this movie. It's hard for me to say anything really negative about this movie, because I do like this movie and I think it's done very well. And we can get into the nitpicks of everything, but then you're just starting to nitpick it.
Which I think we have done in the past with a lot of things. I just think it's even hard to nitpick this one.
Yeah.
I'd also make the cat not fat, but that's just because I don't know why it needs to be a fat cat.
This is a really sad moment in the movie, but the fact that Joe lands in the cat, and then they're just like, wait, where'd the cat's soul go? And then it quick cuts to the cat, like, slowly going to the great beyond. It's like, no, that's horrible.
So that's what I was thinking too. Is as soon as they switch bodies, is 22 going into the cat, or is the cat just dropping dead right there? But they did show that when Joe makes it back to his body, the cat runs back to the lady. But still, it's that was the cat's just like, what's going on? Why am I dead? And that's another huge positive. I think that the stairway to heaven is more of an escalator, but not even an escalator. It's just a conveyor belt.
Yeah.
It's everything's black with just white outlines on things. Like, even that stands out as something dramatically different than everything else. So, well, if nobody else has any other major changes, I think we maybe wrap this one up. Go see Soul. It's on Disney. You probably have Disney. If you don't, get it. Maybe. I don't know. There's more on Disney Plus than just The Mandalorian. Like, I'm starting to learn that. It's, there's maybe a few other things to watch. So, and leave comments down below. Let us know if you liked doing more animation stuff. There's a lot of animation, both, classic for kids and for adults and things that I do enjoy, and I wouldn't mind going through them again. So let us know in the comments if we should do more animated shows, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Adios.
See ya.